The teasers dropped, the fandom went silent. In an instant, the entire K-pop world was turned upside down. I mean, think about the absolute pure high of this moment, you know? BTS makes this massive comeback with their fifth studio album, Arirang, and like the title track, Swim, is just dominating everything.
Right, it was huge.
We're talking a perfect all kill on the charts, 140 million views on YouTube practically overnight, and they literally just took home Summer Song of the Year at the AMAs. The visuals, the choreography, the energy, it was flawless. And then, whiplash, you open your phone, and the timeline is just on fire with one headline. They tried to destroy BTS lawsuit exposed. Welcome to Starscope K Report.
Join us as we ride the Hallyu wave, uncovering the biggest K-pop comebacks, shocking industry controversies, and major K-drama updates. From internet-breaking rumors to historic chart milestones, we dive deep into the world of Korean entertainment.
So the narrative shifted so incredibly fast. 1 minute, we are celebrating the fact that BTS is gearing up to headline the halftime show at the 2026 FIFA World Cup final, like alongside Justin Bieber and Shakira.
Right, the biggest stage in the world.
Exactly. And the next minute, they are getting slammed with a federal copyright lawsuit in a U.S. district court in California. If you are a fan who has been streaming this comeback nonstop, it gives you serious emotional whiplash. The allegations are incredibly heavy. So let's look at the objective facts of this deep dive. Who is actually filing this suit, and what are their specific claims?
Yeah, so looking strictly at the court filings, the lawsuit was brought forward on July 8th by 3 American songwriters, Steve Cooper, Jon Sandler, and Greylyn Johnson. And their core allegation is that the BTS track, Swim, copied significant substantial elements of an unreleased demo they created in early 2025.
Wait, really?
Yeah, and adding to the intrigue, that unreleased demo is also titled Swim.
Okay, the word unreleased is the detail that immediately makes you pause. I mean, if a song is a massive hit on global radio, you can easily understand how someone might accidentally hear it and, mimic the melody. But if a song is sitting unreleased on a hard drive somewhere, how do global K-pop superstars, whether they are in a studio in Seoul or LA, just happen to stumble upon it?
Legally, that's the concept of proving access. And it's often, like, the most difficult hurdle in any copyright dispute. The plaintiffs have to demonstrate a plausible, documented route that their private demo took to reach the defendants.
Right.
So in their complaint, they outline a very specific timeline. They state they finished their demo in March 2025 and began circulating it to gauge industry interest. One of their targets was an independent music label and publishing company called Artist Publishing Group, or ATG.
But, pitching to a label is just standard industry practice for songwriters looking for a placement. Sending an MP3 to a company email address doesn't really prove anyone actually clicked play, does it?
Well, that's why the plaintiffs point to a specific piece of digital evidence. They allege that executives at APG didn't just receive the demo, but shared it via a business-to-business music sharing platform called disco.ac. Yeah, according to reports from Music Business Worldwide, the plaintiffs actually attached a digital listening history report from disco.ac to their lawsuit. This report allegedly logs APG officials actively playing the track.
So there's a receipt.
Right. And from there, the plaintiffs claim the demo trickled down to a songwriter named Derek Milano, who is signed to APG, and he's actually a credited co-writer on BTS's Swim.
Okay, that's it.
And it goes further. They allege the track was sent to Noreen Prunier-Winans at ATG Group, who shared it further within this Los Angeles songwriting camp. Since BTS was in LA in 2025 working on the Arirang album, the plaintiffs argue this network of sharing provided a clear opportunity for copying.
I have to challenge the logic of this chain of events, though. It sounds like an incredibly complex game of industry telephone. I mean, having a digital log that an executive at a label clicked play on a secure platform is entirely different from proving a completely separate team of songwriters actively ripped it off.
It's a leap, for sure.
Right. In any corporate environment, pitches get reviewed and passed around all the time. Assuming that means intentional plagiarism feels like connecting dots that are actually just, parallel lines.
Well, that friction point is the entire battlefield of the lawsuit. Proving someone had the opportunity to hear a track is a far cry from proving they actually listened to it, internalized it, and then improperly appropriated it for commercial gain.
Exactly.
However, under U.S. copyright law, establishing that chain of access is a mandatory first step. If you can't prove the defendants could have realistically heard the original work, the case is usually thrown out before anyone even debates how similar the songs sound.
Okay, but even if we entertain this web of industry connections, the way this lawsuit is structured is highly unusual. The most fascinating part isn't necessarily who is being sued, but who was very deliberately left off the defendant list.
Right, and before we dive into those missing names, if you love staying updated on your favorites and the business behind the music, make sure you're subscribed to Starscope K Report. We've got even bigger scoops ahead.
So looking at the actual lawsuit documents in this deep dive, the plaintiffs named HYBE, HYBE America, BigHit Music, and several credited Western composers, including Ryan Tedder from OneRepublic and the previously mentioned Derek Milano, but noticeably absent from the defendant list.
The idols.
The BTS members themselves. RM is a formally credited co-writer on the track. HYBE's powerhouse producer, P-Dog, is also a primary co-writer. Yet neither of them are named. Why aim the lawsuit at the corporate entities and Western collaborators, but completely shield the actual K-pop idols?
It reveals a very calculated legal strategy. In the modern music industry, massive pop tracks are often created in multi-writer camps. The plaintiffs are targeting the specific writers they believe served as the direct access point, in this case Milano and the APG connection.
Makes sense.
More importantly, they are targeting the corporate entities holding the publishing rights, because those are the entities with the deepest pockets.
Always follow the money.
Exactly. By omitting the BTS members, the plaintiffs might be trying to focus the liability squarely on the Western intermediaries and the parent company. It avoids turning the lawsuit into a direct personal attack on beloved artists, which, as we know, can trigger a massive public relations nightmare.
A total fandom mobilization.
Right. But it still allows the plaintiffs to seek damages, profits, and retroactive co-writing credits on the final track.
Well, the plaintiffs clearly didn't just walk into court with a hunch and a prayer. They brought in a hired expert to validate their claims musically.
They did. They commissioned a prominent musicologist named Alexander Stewart to conduct a forensic comparison of the two versions of Swim. According to the court documents, Stewart's analysis claims to have found significant, undeniable similarities.
Like what, specifically?
He points to the title hook, unusual harmonic progressions, rhythmic textures, and lyrical elements. His official conclusion submitted to the court is quite absolute. He stated, independent creation of BTS can be ruled out, and copying is the inescapable conclusion.
Okay, wait, I read the sources on this, and there is a massive caveat regarding this specific musicologist. Alexander Stewart is the exact same expert who testified in two of the biggest copyright trials of the last decade. The case against Ed Sheeran for Thinking Out Loud and the case against Led Zeppelin for Stairway to Heaven.
Oh, yeah.
And in both of those highly publicized cases, he confidently testified that the music was ripped off. And in both cases, the juries completely rejected his findings and dismissed the plagiarism claims. So, taking his inescapable conclusion as absolute gospel seems highly premature given his track record in court.
That context is incredibly important for anyone following the case. Expert musicologist testimony is inherently subjective, and defense teams will simply hire their own expert to tear the plaintiff's analysis apart. Juries are then forced to weigh these competing musical theories against each other.
It's a battle of the experts.
Totally. And HYBE, for its part, is aggressively pushing back. BigHit Music released a forceful, unequivocal denial to the media. They categorized the lawsuit as a one-sided claim, making it explicitly clear that Swim was created independently and originally, and they vowed to respond forcefully through proper legal channels.
If you look at how the fandom is reacting, you can see a very clear cultural divide. K-nuts, like the domestic Korean fans, are fiercely defending the group's honor on forums, overwhelmingly viewing this as a Western cash grab designed to target a successful Asian act at the absolute peak of their global dominance.
Which is a valid perspective.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the international fans are mobilizing in a slightly different way. If you are a fan streaming Swim on Spotify right now, you might feel a little conflicted. But the international fan bases have essentially decided to double down, mass streaming the track harder than ever in a show of absolute solidarity.
It really highlights how K-pop fandoms operate as protective ecosystems. But to understand how this conflict actually gets resolved in a courtroom, we have to look at the legal framework itself. Based on academic research we sourced from the DePaul Journal of Art, Technology, and Intellectual Property Law, U.S. copyright disputes for music hinge on the Arnstein versus Porter doctrine.
Copyright law always feels intentionally murky to me. How does a court legally prove two pieces of art are actually the same?
Well, the Arnstein test has two main prongs. The first, which we covered as access, The second is proving substantial similarity, which is further broken down into two distinct tests.
Okay.
First is the extrinsic test. This is an objective mathematical dissection of the music. Experts like Alexander Stewart analyze the sheet music, the tempo, the specific chord progressions. It is akin to analyzing the structural blueprints of a building.
So, the clinical breakdown of the art.
Precisely. But then comes the intrinsic test, which evaluates the total concept and feel from the perspective of an ordinary average listener. Do the two songs, when played side by side in a courtroom, feel substantially the same to a layperson?
Wait, feel the same?
Yeah. To win a copyright case, a plaintiff has to pass both tests. A song might use the exact same structural blueprint, like the same chords or tempo, but if it doesn't feel like the same song to a normal person, the plagiarism claim often fails.
Hold on. Evaluating the concept and feel is entirely subjective. How does a jury of random people who might not even listen to K-pop accurately decide if the vibe is too similar?
It's tough.
I mean, you could have two songs with completely different melodies that just happen to share a similar upbeat, summery energy, and a jury might think they feel the same. It seems incredibly risky to leave millions of dollars and an artist's reputation up to a literal vibe check.
It is an incredibly high-wire act, which is exactly why so many of these cases are settled out of court behind closed doors to avoid the unpredictability of a jury. The subjectivity makes it difficult, especially in pop music, where certain formulas and emotional beats are proven to work and are deliberately repeated. But BTS is far from the only giant facing this exact threat right now.
Oh, yeah.
Up next, we'll unpack how a massive K-pop girl group just got hit with a surprisingly similar lawsuit and what it reveals about a growing crisis in the industry.
The timing of this next story in our deep dive is almost unbelievable. Just as the fandom is processing the BTS news, we learn that NewJeans is being sued over their massive 2023 hit, ETA. And this isn't a quiet dispute handled over email. It is a full-blown federal lawsuit filed in California by a U.S. copyright management company called All Surface Publishing.
And the scope of this lawsuit is massive. The legal filing targets NewJeans, their label ADOR, the parent company HYBE, the track's producer 250, the lyricists Benzino and Vanna, and even Apple.
Wait, stop right there. Apple, as in the multinational tech company that makes the iPhone. How did they get dragged into a copyright dispute over a K-pop beat?
Because ETA wasn't just a hit song. It was the centerpiece of a massive global marketing campaign. The track was heavily featured in an iPhone commercial, and Apple was deeply involved in promoting the music video, which was shot entirely on their devices.
But of course.
Yeah, in copyright law, plaintiffs cast the widest net possible, targeting any entity that profited from the allegedly infringing work. They want statutory damages up to $150,000 and a cut of those commercial profits. Oh, and the core claim is that ETA improperly lifted instrumental elements from a 2005 dance track called Samir's Theme, produced by DJ Debonair Samir.
Okay, so the specific musical claims they are making against NewJeans are incredibly technical here. They aren't just arguing the songs share a similar dance vibe. They're alleging the unauthorized use of, let me check the notes, syncopated horn melody and a specific 16th note rhythmic structure. For those of us who didn't go to music school, what does that actually mean in the context of the song?
To put it simply, they are pointing to the exact heartbeat and phrasing of the instrumental. A syncopated horn melody means the brass instruments are playing accents off the main beat, creating that catchy, unpredictable groove.
Okay, got it.
And the 16th note rhythmic structure refers to a very rapid, specific stuttering pattern in the drums. The plaintiffs are arguing that NewJeans' producer didn't just capture a similar energy, but literally lifted the exact mathematical phrasing of those horns and drum fills from the 2005 track.
For me, the most jaw-dropping part of this NewJeans situation isn't even the musical analysis. It is how it ties directly back into the incredibly messy corporate civil war happening at HYBE right now.
Oh, absolutely. The internal politics add a massive layer of complexity. When the news broke, ADOR released a statement regarding the lawsuit. But instead of simply issuing a unified blanket denial of the claims, they noted that the track was obtained through Vanna, a writer specifically chosen by former CEO Hee-jin. Yes. ADOR stated they are currently reviewing internal company records to determine whether Hee-jin properly vetted the song for copyright similarities at the time of production.
That is wild. ADOR is essentially pointing a finger back at their former CEO while simultaneously trying to defend their own artists. I mean, NewJeans has already been through so much turmoil. In November 2024, they held that surprise press conference to notify ADOR of terminating their exclusive contract.
Right, it was unprecedented.
After a brutal, highly publicized legal battle, members like Hani, Harren, and Hye-in returned to the agency. To get hit with this federal lawsuit now, just as rumors of an OT5 comeback were gaining traction, is devastating. And this isn't even an isolated incident for them. Last year, they faced allegations over bubblegum from the British band Shaka Tak and another separate suit over the track.
How sweet.
It really forces us to ask a critical question about the current state of K-pop production. Are we witnessing an actual plagiarism crisis, or are we simply seeing the legal friction of an industry that relies heavily on recycling global trends?
That's the million-dollar question. To understand why this is happening now, we have to look at the broader culture of the Korean music industry. A recent feature in the Korea Herald detailed K-pop's long-standing open custom of referencing. Historically, Korean composers and agencies would openly study Western and Japanese music to produce trendy sounds. Decades ago, if a K-pop track sounded almost identical to an American Billboard hit, it wasn't a scandal. It was considered high praise.
The culture has shifted so dramatically, though. What used to be considered clever referencing is now a massive legal liability, mostly because K-pop is no longer a niche regional market. They are dominating the global charts, which puts a massive financial target on their backs. But the line between being heavily inspired by a genre and outright copying a specific song is so blurred.
Very blurred.
It reminds me of the huge controversy in 2022 involving Hee-jin.
Right, that controversy was a watershed moment for how the Korean public views referencing. Hee-jin is a highly respected, veteran singer-songwriter and producer in Korea. A claim surfaced online that his 2021 track, A Very Private Night, sounded almost identical to a piece by the legendary Japanese composer Ryuichi Sakamoto called Aqua.
I remember this.
Yeah, Hee-jin publicly admitted the similarities, stating he was a longtime admirer of Sakamoto and that the music must have unconsciously remained in his mind while writing. Sakamoto himself responded incredibly gracefully, stating that all music is inspired by existing art and that the similarities didn't require any legal action.
Sakamoto forgave him, but the court of public opinion was merciless. The K-nets were so outraged that Hee-jin ultimately had to step down from hosting his iconic KBS music program, Sketchbook.
It was a huge fallout.
The legal reality didn't even matter. The public felt the authenticity of the art was compromised. Which brings up this fascinating concept mentioned in our sources, unconscious plagiarism.
It is a documented psychological and legal phenomenon. The brain absorbs melodies and stores them, sometimes losing the tag of where the memory came from.
Right.
The most famous legal precedent is George Harrison's 1970 hit My Sweet Lord. He was sued by the publishers of the 1963 song He's So Fine by the Chiffons. The court ultimately ruled that while Harrison didn't deliberately steal the music, the songs were musically identical. Because he had prior access to the hit song simply by being alive when it was on the radio, he was found liable for subconscious plagiarism and had to pay massive damages.
This concept completely breaks my brain. If a brilliant songwriter like Hee-jin or George Harrison genuinely absorbs a beautiful melody just by existing in the world, and years later their brain spits it back out without them realizing it belongs to someone else, should that really trigger a career-ending lawsuit? Or is that just fundamentally how all human art is created? We are all just sponges soaking up the world around us.
It is a profound philosophical dilemma that the legal system is forced to resolve with hard financial penalties. In pop music, as the DePaul Journal highlighted with the famous Four Chords video by the comedy band Axis of Awesome, there are literally millions of hit songs built on the exact same four-chord progression. Musical ideas are a finite resource. The building blocks of Western pop music are incredibly limited.
Yeah, if you only have 12 notes in a Western scale, eventually basic math dictates that melodies and rhythmic structures are going to overlap. There are only so many ways to arrange a catchy hook before you bump into something written 20 years ago. These industry deep dives get intense, and understanding the business behind the music is crucial for any fan. So, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a KT update as these lawsuits unfold. We really need to figure out where the line between inspiration and theft is finally drawn.
As K-pop continues its global domination, the target on its back only grows larger. With a limited number of chord progressions in pop music and the industry's historical reliance on referencing, we have to wonder, Are we about to see a tidal wave of historical copyright lawsuits against our favorite second and third gen groups? It makes you listen to your favorite tracks just a little bit differently.
You've been listening to Starscope K-Report, where Eric and Minji bring you the stories shaping K-pop, K-dramas, and the global Hallyu wave. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.